The UK Parliament is on the verge of passing a law that is crossing so many red lines that I never thought a country like the United Kingdom would ever contemplate. It's a law that will destroy your freedom of speech, our freedom of speech. And no, I don't mean the Farage freedom of speech, the Elon Musk freedom of speech, or the Trump freedom of speech, aka the bro freedom of speech. No, I'm talking about you, me, and all of our freedoms to express our concerns or indeed report certain situations that take place domestically and internationally. To an extent, not only that they would shut people like me and our podcast down, but we could all face terror-level prosecutions and imprisonment. I told you, it's serious, and I really need your help because we need to act now. Do me a big favor and make sure that you've subscribed on YouTube to help us reach as many people as possible, keep them informed, and help them get out of the clickbait shadows and unmask the narratives. Thank you so much, and back to the episode. The UK government is launching this law as an extension of its existing anti-terror law. And I'll jump straight into it, where you can see the press release. We haven't published this on Retort Media yet. It's something that we're kind of working on right now. I haven't actually written properly about it. But the title says, UK defense is strengthened against foreign state-backed groups. New powers are now in place for the Home Secretary to crack down on groups carrying out hostile activity on behalf of foreign states. So in other words, they're passing this law, which I can't say who facilitated it, but I think it's kind of obvious. But ever since people started calling out the genocide in Gaza, and of course you had loads of independent media, and indeed some of the state media like the BBC reported casualties in Gaza, the number of people that were killed and murdered by the Israeli soldiers and the Israeli military. And because it's officially a Hamas released figures, these powers effectively will say that if you are spreading what the Home Secretary deems to be a terrorist-sponsored propaganda, you can be shut down if you're an independent media, or even be prosecuted under these new terror laws. I initially thought, okay, somebody probably misunderstood something, but I read through it, and these are the key points I want you guys to highlight. That the Home Secretary has been given new counter-terrorism style powers to target groups working at the behest of or in the interest of foreign states to carry out acts which threaten the UK's security and the safety of communities across the country. I mean, because notice that they're not even talking about terrorism. So let's say, for example, we're looking at what's happening in Iran right now. For instance, one of my previous episodes, I talked about how AI was used to target schools in Tehran and civilian infrastructure. And of course, the information that is available to me and to all of the other journalists and media outlets is what the Iranian state publishes, because we have no other access to this information. So according to this, because the Iranian state is hostile to the UK, and in fact, the IRGC has been prescribed as a terrorist group, the fact that we are reporting the figures published by the IRGC basically makes us complicit to spreading propaganda and misinformation by the hostile state. And I'm like, are you guys for real? This is crazy. And the other note that I made here, if the Home Secretary judges it necessary to designate a body, she will do so without delay as soon as is practically possible. So she can basically go after us or after anybody who reports this. This is unbelievable, people. I mean, here's a statement, because this is a press release. Of course, it's very PR driven, right? I'm going to show you a report that was published by The Guardian, because of course, The Guardian, whether you agree with The Guardian or not, The Guardian is actually an independent medium. It's a huge media company, but it's independent. It's of course controlled by a charitable organization. And they are seriously worried. I mean, I actually discovered this problem through The Guardian, and I just wanted to look into it myself. And I found the press releases that from the government, which very nicely and quietly decided to publish this. Because again, I have not seen this on the BBC or Sky News or anywhere else, which is interesting. Okay. But I'm going to go through the Guardian's analysis of this because this is unbelievable. I mean, the statement here that the Home Secretary made, Shabana Mahmood, she said, and I quote, "Keeping our country and community safe is the first duty of any government." Well, yeah. That is why we've taken decisive action to deal with the growing threat posed by aggressive foreign states. Under these new powers, we're going further to dismantle and deter hostile activity. What activity? What are you talking about? This act gives the police and intelligence agencies the tools they need to pursue foreign powers and their proxies, okay, and better protect our communities, institutions, and democratic values. The problem when you see with these sort of PR, because guys, I'm an entrepreneur, like I've been involved in PR, right? The thing is about PR that you always try to kind of conflate so many different points to paint a picture. Because this picture that they're painting here is that, oh my God, we've got all these bad proxies, quote unquote, that they define as proxies that are spreading all this horrible misinformation, all this dangerous content and protests that are really, really bad for the country. Like, for example, they went after pensioners that were protesting against the genocide in Gaza, right? Under the new terror laws. I mean, I'm sorry, are you telling me pensioners? And by the way, white English pensioners, right? Let's just, just highlight that point. So it's not like they're foreign or anything like that. We're talking about English, British, right? White pensioners out there protesting against the genocide in Gaza. And they were arrested because, oh my God, yeah, I guess what? They're proxies of Hamas? Are you for real? What the hell's going on, people? This is the UK. I mean, I am flabbergasted. You guys can read the report if you want. Like I said, it's very PR driven, so they're not going to be very honest about what it is that they're really trying to do. But here's the report from The Guardian that really opened my eyes and made me seriously worry and in fact even consider my position in the UK. I'll come back to that shortly. So The Guardian report, UK threats bill could pull British journalists into terror prosecutions, experts say. Okay? 2 independent reviewers of terrorism legislation call for safeguards for NGOs and journalists before bill comes to law this week. So the week of this reporting. So by next week, basically what? Are they going to see people like me as a proxy? People like Scott Lucas as a proxy? People like Josh Paul, who gave us deeper insight in terms of what Israel is doing in Palestine as somebody that was involved in selling arms to Israel. Yeah? Is he going to be seen as a proxy for Hamas? What the fuck are we doing here, people? So The Guardian says British foreign correspondents could be at risk of prosecution if they use sources within the state-backed groups in countries such as Iran under national security legislation being rushed through Parliament this week. Yeah, quite conveniently, rushed through Parliament. No matter people didn't hear about this. That's why I want you guys to share this with as many people as you possibly can, because this is outrageous. This is something that you need to go to your local MP and absolutely bombard them with complaints about this. David Anderson, a former UK independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, has warned that unless the bill is amended, it could accidentally pull journalists working in danger zone countries into prosecutions for terrorism, which is despicable. The new anti-terror powers are designed to allow the UK government to label state-backed groups as terrorist organizations, enabling them to ban groups such as Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC that I've just mentioned. And the legal change, which is expected to complete its final parliamentary stages this week, would also create new criminal offenses for people who, quote unquote, support, assist, and obtain material benefits from groups formerly listed as state-supported threats. So basically, when they talk about material, so as is the case here with me and with this podcast and indeed with Retort Media, the data that we can access because we have no access to any other data. And we report this data to keep you informed about what actually is going on, basically falls under that threat. I mean, what? I mean, I'm not even sure Trump did this in America right now. I mean, this is unbelievable. However, there are concerns that the National Security State Threats Bill would be, in practice, go beyond its main aim of targeting proxies and could end up penalizing foreign correspondents as well. And the other thing they've mentioned is that press freedom groups have expressed concern at the warnings and asked the government to ensure that there are safeguards. The Home Office obviously denied the bill would undermine the work of journalists. The department's guidance suggests journalists are protected, but Lord Anderson said those protections were not explicit in the bill, and this is absolutely key. And I'll explain in a moment. What he's saying here, the bill seems to have been pulled together in a hurry, obviously, with mooted safeguards for NGOs and journalists largely absent from its text. That needs to be put right early this week before the bill becomes law. Under the legislation, material benefits include not just financial benefits, but also information, like I just highlighted. It would be an offense both to obtain, accept, and retain this material benefit, but also to, quote unquote, agree to accept it. And there is no reasonable defense for either. So if for whatever reason they come after myself, my team, they'll be like, oh yeah, you guys obtained, I don't know, Hamas data or the Iranian data, which is basically the only data that is available to us. And therefore you are promoting them. You are one of their proxies. Guys, this is really bad. This is really, really serious. And the other person that The Guardian included in the article, Jonathan Hall, the independent review of terrorism legislation, has also argued for the law to be amended, extending the reasonable excuses defense to cover information. The government has not accepted this recommendation. Why? Why not? It's reasonable. And the quote here, there are obvious concerns here for anyone who is legitimate business might cause them to have contact with designated body or those in position to give information on its behalf, Anderson said in a brief note. It would place in potential jeopardy a charity, for example, such as Halo Trust, which could not lawfully ask the RGC for its agents where the landmines were laid, or a conflict resolution organization that needs to engage with designated bodies as part of its work. Kind of like also NGOs that, for example, go to Gaza to try and save children. And they basically need to ask Hamas where the mines are, where the safety zones are. I mean, who else would they ask? What the hell are they doing? Foreign correspondents could also be affected. Indeed, on the face of it, they would be at risk of prosecution if they were to have contact of any kind with sources within designated bodies or their agents. So effectively, like our good friend, Scott Lucas, who provides information that is available to him from Iran. What, is he going to be prosecuted now as well? Do you guys see the issue here? Ministers have argued that information would only fall within the prohibition if, quote, it possesses an inherent value that enriches the recipient. Okay? But Anderson said that the definition of material benefit included information as separate category distinct from the financial benefit clause. They have also offered the assurance that those potentially caught by the new offense would only be prosecuted if the Attorney General considered it was in public interest. Wow. They also included another statement from Nick Williams, the policy and campaigns officer at Index on Censorships, said it was concerning there appeared to be significant difference of opinion between two independent reviewers of terrorism legislation and the Home Office about the application of the law. Quote, any well-intentioned but hastily drafted law that could chill or criminalize public interest journalism from reporters working at great risk to themselves threatens the very foundation of British democracy and the very thing this bill is intended to protect, he said. We need scrutiny, not speed, when considered such significant provisions. And this is really a very good point, because I've seen some other reporting on this. Again, not on the main media, but YouTubers, some of the journalists that I know, they made the point that sources suggesting that they might add a note to clarify. But the thing is, when a judge looks at that, the judge does not read these so-called notes. The judge looks at the legislation as it's written in law. So the judge's not going to be like, oh yeah, the law says this and that, but I'm going to refer to the notes as well. No. So the fact that they're not willing to change this and to explicitly provide protections for journalists and NGO workers, for example, this is despicable. This is truly unbelievable. Now, towards the end of the article, The Guardian included the statement from the Home Office spokesman who said, "This bill does nothing to undermine the vital work journalists do, and any suggestions otherwise is absolutely false. Legitimate activity, including journalistic freedoms, are protected under the bill, as well as diplomatic and humanitarian engagement. We have a proud tradition in this country of upholding the freedom of the press. Indeed, it is our obligation to ensure journalists are empowered to carry out their work." You know, they say this, and you think, surely, as a Labour government, they probably believe this. But because it was rushed, you know, like, as is with everything, especially when it comes to the law, right? If you rush anything in law, you just create loopholes. And the fact that they seem to be refusing to accept that they made loopholes, to me, I find that pretty ridiculous. But now that I'm trying to be conspiratorial, you guys know me as a data scientist. What I do, I look at different points and I try to connect the dots, because despite the statement that I just read to you from the Home Office, there's another development that I'm not seeing anybody talking about. Again, I saw independent YouTubers, bloggers, journalists that mentioned it. I guess I did not know that that was the case. But, you know, us independent journalists and media outlets, you know, we talk amongst one another. There is this interesting green paper that the government has published that, as far as I'm concerned, shows that they do not care, or whatever statement that I've just read to you is complete, utter bullshit. Why? Because the Department for Culture, Media and Sport just made this announcement on July 10th. And I find it astonishing how they're using all that fun, positive language. Watch this space, a new strategic direction for UK media. But it's a green paper, which means that it will take a while for it to go anywhere. But to me, it just shows the government's way of thinking right now, right? The direction of play. Because this green paper aims to prioritize content from state and corporate media to be prioritized in platforms like YouTube and TikTok. You know how you go on your YouTube homepage, right? And you get all the list of videos that the algorithms think would be of interest to you. So it's not just from the channels that you've subscribed to. Sometimes it doesn't even prioritize that. It prioritizes videos that are linked, or what it thinks is linked to your interest, so that it can increase engagement between you and the videos, right? Because that way they sell more ads. So what this green paper basically wants to do, it's for YouTube and TikTok and all the other social media platforms to prioritize content from, say, the BBC or Channel 4 or Sky News, because they are more authentic or more accurate sources of information. It's to make sure that you are well informed, because they're worried that there's far too much misinformation. You see the pattern here, like this whole terrorist thing, right? Oh, they want to make sure that harmful information is not prioritized. So when you have media outlets like us over here who are fighting against or try to call out these big media conglomerates for not doing their jobs properly, in some cases they do some phenomenal journalism, don't get me wrong. But in a lot of cases, as we've seen with MAGA, as we've seen with Brexit, they completely failed for all sorts of different reasons. So the owners had to be on independent journalists and media outlets to call this bullshit out. Well, now, according to this green paper, well, apparently they're more important because they are more trustworthy than independent media outlets. Wow. Freedom of speech, is it? Freedom of expression, is it? Let's have a look here. This is like the introduction that it had. It's like, our media is central part of our civic realm. High quality television programs like culturally relevant drama and comedy provide common references to help shape attitudes to social issues. I mean, yeah, generally speaking, it's true. Like I said, remember what I told you guys earlier? With PR, you always try to create these positive general points, or indeed negative general points, without highlighting the nuances that in fact could impact thousands of people in a completely opposite way, right? But let's stay with this for now. Trustworthy news, subject to rigorous editorial standards, provide the shared understanding and facts needed for people to trust one another. You see where this is going, right? The broadcast of national moments, such as the Olympic Games or international sporting fixtures, bring the nation together for shared experiences. Yeah, in theory, as we've seen with the World Cup. However, this is the key point I want you guys to note. These benefits are under pressure in today's social media environment, where a limited selection of broadcast channels has given way to an explosion of seemingly unlimited content accessed primarily via the internet. And there we have it. There we have it. Now, yes, there's a very serious problem with misinformation online. You guys know me. I mean, what got me into Google Campus was the fact that I built a company that used language models before ChatGPT to fight misinformation online, specifically in healthcare. And that was back in 2012. So misinformation was already a problem. And let's not forget Cambridge Analytica. Remember what they've done? How they managed to shift the attention towards Brexit in a more positive way, shift the attention towards MAGA in a more positive way, right? This is not new. So yes, I agree with the general sentiment that they're worried about that there's far too much misinformation. Of course, what Elon Musk has done with Twitter is it blew this whole bullshit out of the water. I agree with the sentiment, but the way they're talking about it is that, well, actually, we can only trust the media outlets that we believe in. And when you look at the list, it wasn't really a massive list. It's just all the usual suspect. It's the mainstream media. So effectively, if you subscribe to our channel here, you are very interested in the discussions that Scott Lucas and I have on the bi-weekly geopolitics, because it's unbiased and we absolutely dismantle all the bullshit that is out there about it. Well, if you subscribe to our channel to get this information from Scott Lucas, well, tough luck. Because if this thing goes through, the first thing you're going to see is BBC, Channel 4, Sky, ITV, or whoever else, whatever other mainstream media that they'll choose. And our channel will be probably buried somewhere in the ether. You would probably physically would have to go to our channel and find out whether or not we actually published anything. Now, I haven't seen YouTube's response for this, or Google. Whether they will accept that or not, I don't know, because of course for them, that could be a financial loss. Unless the government gives them some kind of contract to say, well, actually, if you prioritize the BBC, for example, we're going to pay you shitloads of money. YouTube, of course, not going to say no to that. That's the world that we live in. And the other point that this announcement made, which I thought was quite fascinating as part of its executive summary, it says, our domestic broadcasters, including our public service media, are fighting to be seen. The poor souls that are not seen, they're hidden online. They're fighting to be seen and heard in an increasingly competitive and fragmented market. Really? Are you for real? I mean, their channels on YouTube have millions and millions of followers. What the hell are you talking about? But let's carry on. People are increasingly accessing news online rather than through more regulated spaces like Freeview or their TV sets. Regulated in this case, huh? Where was this regulation where they spread all the bullshit about Brexit, huh? Regulation, my ass. This is weakening the ability of trustworthy news providers to reach audiences and shape informed public debate. Blah, 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 blah. So you guys see what I mean about the general narrative here. As I like to share with you that, part of the work that I used to do when architecting AI models, one of the key elements of my models is what I like to call the behavior stack. And basically, in very simple terms, you look at people's behaviors, their sentiments over the years, right, or whatever given period of time. And algorithmically, you can actually start analyzing a pattern, and you can start seeing where that pattern could potentially go in the future. And of course, algorithmically, it's like what Cambridge Analytica did. And like I said, my company can do the same. And most proper AI companies can do that, where you can algorithmically shift people's decisions. Yeah. You can change people's behaviors. And I always laugh at people when they say, oh, Tim, you can never change my behavior. My friends, we can change it. If we want to, we can. Trust me, we can. It's like, sorry. I mean, you have to look at the world that we live in today, because where we are today in the shit show that we're seeing today around the world, that's not an inevitability. We chose, as when I say we, not me, thankfully, but our general human society around the world. We chose to be where we are today. We chose to have Brexit. We chose to have Trump twice. We chose to have the Iran war that's fucking up the entire global economy. We chose everything that we're seeing today. We chose to ignore science and continue falling for the bullshit of the petroleum industry and destroy the environment. And we've got all these crazy heat waves, especially in the UK and Europe, that is just not normal. But apparently, yeah, this is all inevitable. No, it's not. We chose to be here. We are where we are because we allowed these people to tell us where to go. And we were like sheep. And we're like, okay, let's go to the oblivion. So yeah, we can change your behavior, ladies and gentlemen. And this, basically, the way I see it, it just tells you that there's a pattern of thought where they really want to go when it comes to suppressing information. Or, I mean, they might say that it's not suppressing. Well, certainly they want to shift the attention, your attention, our attention, into whatever information that the Home Secretary or some politician in government decides on our behalf. That's not freedom of speech, ladies and gentlemen. This is called suppression. I lived under dictatorships. I've been to Soviet Union, Russia. This is the kind of shit that they used to do. Like, they'd be like, oh, no, don't listen to what you see, in foreign news. Listen to our news because it's the accurate one. This is it. This is it. And this is why I want to share this with you, because there are two things that we can do about this. Okay. And I alluded to that earlier, I think, that you need to go to your local MP and you need to share this video, these articles, and demand that they force the government not to do this. Because this is our freedom of speech. I mean, interestingly, the very people that bitch and moan about freedom of speech, like Elon Musk and Nigel Farage and fucking Trump or whatever, well, they should actually be fighting this because they're self-proclaimed free speech warriors. Well, of course, they actually want this because, of course, they can control the narrative and therefore they can control how all of us think. So you need to go to your local MP, email them, call them, do whatever, and absolutely complain that this is unacceptable. We are not living in a dictatorship, and we're certainly not going to allow that to happen. And we must never allow this to happen. Now, one thing I have to highlight, a caveat. All of this is under the current leadership of Keir Starmer and the current government. Now, I'm recording this on Friday, the 17th of July. So for those who don't follow British politics, Andy Burnham is now officially the leader of Labour. And he will officially become the Prime Minister on Monday, this coming Monday, right? Now, whether he's going to continue with that, we have no idea. He might turn around and say, you know what? No, scrap all that's bullshit. We can't have that. I don't know. So that's why you need to call your MP, contact, even if it's not your local MP, if you have other MPs that contact them, complain at them and say that this is unacceptable. This is not freedom of speech. This is not freedom of expression. This is not freedom of the press. I mean, let's say you follow YouTube, right? Do you really want YouTube just to keep on bombarding you BBC stuff? To prioritize BBC stuff and Channel 4 stuff over everything else? I mean, to be honest with you, I'll be so surprised if YouTube accepts this, even if the government pays them money. I don't know. I mean, Google are so fucking desperate. Like every company that decided to waste their money on this stupid AI nonsense, they're desperate for cash. Okay. So they say, if the government say, yeah, we're going to pay you, I don't know how many squillions of dollars a year. They're probably going to say, yeah, sure, daddy, give me the money, I don't know. But go to your MP, complain, highlight this problem and make them listen to these concerns. But of course, we still can't control the outcomes of this. And this is where the second thing I need you to do, guys. Please, please, please support retortmedia.com. Yes, subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, wherever. But of course, as we're seeing here, if effectively they tell YouTube or TikTok to shut us down, they'll shut us down. So even if we have a lot of subscribers, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. Okay? And that's the reason. And I did warn you about this, guys. Didn't I warn you about this? I warned you about this many, many years ago. And this is the reason why I launched retortmedia.com. Our servers, I did tell you that I'm building a platform that is independent. Okay. Our servers are not in the UK or in America. They're in Europe. Okay. So that is already protected. So the UK can't force us to do anything with the servers, right? It's out of the UK's jurisdiction. And equally now, I am considering my position. Guys, I cannot tell you how many times I've been invited, I've been begged, I've been asked to leave the UK and move to places like California, for example, for 10 years. And in fact, actually, I've been asked to go to Silicon Valley even before I got into Google campus in London, because they were saying, oh, Tim, we need people like you in Silicon Valley, building AI, da, da, da. Now, to be honest with you, I never wanted that, because also London was going through a phenomenal historic moment in the world of tech. And I wanted to be part of it. And in fact, I am part of it. I have become part of it. And I'm very proud of that, because not from the egotistic perspective, although that does help, obviously, as an entrepreneur, you have to be an egotistic person. Sorry. But I wanted to play a role in shaping London's future and UK's future in AI, because I always believed that we can provide an alternative path to AI that is more ethical and more responsible than Silicon Valley. I told you guys, Silicon Valley already were pushing towards this bullshit AI hype that we're seeing today many, many, many years ago. Okay. So what we're seeing right now is not new. And again, not inevitability. It's a choice that they made. And unfortunately, they managed very successfully to drag the whole world with them. Right. And I wanted to be part of history that tries to move away from this. And by the way, London was, we were above China. So we were actually shaping our own future until, of course, Brexit. The good old Brexit came in and fucked it all up, as always. And that was the point where people were saying to me, Tim, leave. Even Scott Lucas, I mentioned him a few times already. Like, he mentioned in some of our discussions here that how, he loves Britain. He's American, but he's British. And he left because he's like, no, he couldn't handle Brexit. He left, and now he's based in Ireland. I was still pragmatic. I had thoughts. I mean, we looked at potentially at Canada, with my family, Finland. I've mentioned Finland so many times, and indeed Ireland as well. But I felt, you know what? No, surely we're not going to continue with this Brexit shenanigans. We're not going to do that. Come on, we're not that fucking stupid. Here we are 10 years on, and I'll be honest with you guys, I've lost hope. I'm really sorry to say this. I've lost hope. And looking at this story, because I saw this story last night, and to me, this is like the final nail in the coffin. So yeah, I've got a lot of things to think about, because under no circumstances I'm going to want to live in a country that would prosecute me or treat me as some kind of a terrorist shill for simply sharing data that is shared to us by the source that reveals what is really happening in places like Iran, what is really happening in places like Gaza, what is really happening in places like Yemen, in places like Sudan, etc., etc., etc. Basically, we're being told that no, unless you are, working for Sky News or the BBC, you shut the fuck up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did not create the CEO Retort or Retort Media. The clue's in the name for me to shut up. Hell no. Hell no. So I need your help. Please, please, please. I'm sorry to ask, but I need you to subscribe on retortmedia.com/support. This is the only way we can stay connected. Whatever happens on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, we don't need to worry about it. Yes, right now, everything so far, touch wood, is still working, is still there. Let's use the platforms. Let's utilize it to our benefit. Subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you get your friends subscribing on YouTube or whatever. That's great. That's really, really important. But ultimately, if this happens, we need to be connected. We need to be in the same place together. And retortmedia.com is the only place, because I've built it in that way that it's independent. Like I just said, the servers are not in the UK. And like I said, I'm looking at how can we build companies around Retort Media outside the UK to make sure that it stays active and stays independent. But we can't do that without your support. We need you. Please donate whatever you can. You can become a member. Of course, we've got 3 membership tiers, but if you can donate anything from $1 all the way up to, I don't know, I think it's $10,000 limit. Whatever you can, that makes a massive, massive difference, because this is the only way we can fight against this bullshit. And I am, guys, you have no, I am actually quite calm right now. I was absolutely furious last night. I couldn't sleep properly. I was thinking, what the fuck are we doing here? How is this even possible? This is crazy. So frankly, all I can say, I hope Andy Burnham does something, but we have no idea. We literally have no idea. We have no idea. So guys, your support is the way forward for all of us together. And I'll keep you updated. Please stay safe out there, my friends. And in fact, I just have to shout out to some of the whistleblowers that connected with me. Again, what does that mean? Does that mean these whistleblowers are going to be in danger now? This is unbelievable, man. Oh man, you fucking bastards. I cannot believe they're doing this. Anyway, enough of me ranting, but retortmedia.com/support. Guys, this is very serious. We need your support right now. We need to push hard together right now. So I appreciate your support, and I'll see you on Monday. You do not want to miss that episode. Have a great weekend. Much love. Peace out.